Hello students, welcome to the class of plant tissue culture. We have been dealing with somoclonal variation and this will be the continuation of our next class on somoclonal variation. So just a quick recap. Somoclonal variation is defined as a genetic variation observed among progeny of plants regenerated from somatic cells that are cultured in vitro. So, in vitro means in the laboratory. I also told that somoclonal variation can have merits and demerits, which will be dealing that in today's class. So, somoclonal variation is a valuable tool in plant breeding, wherein variation in the tissue culture regenerated plants from somatic cells can be used in the development of crops with novel traits. So this definition, whatever I told you now, we can elaborate in today's class. Let's go into it. So students, if you remember my previous class, I spoke about pre-existing variation in somatic cells of the explants. That is, there is already an variation which are present in the explant. That is in the somatic cells of the explant. And we told that this depends particularly on the age and differentiation status of the cells of those plant. And we studied a difference taking between the meristem, okay, what you're seeing here, this is the meristem and the leaf. And we came to a conclusion telling that the leaves are more specialized. The more the specialized a cell is, the more the chances of somoclonal variation. And also, I compared the young leaf to a mature leaf. And here also we told that the matured leaf can undergo more somoclonal variation when you compare to your younger leaves. Because the matured leaves are highly specialized and would have more mutation when compared to the younger leaves. So why is this happening? This happens because when a particular cell is, when we are saying it is specialized, it depends on the age or the differentiation or de-differentiation they are undergoing, or the duplication and endoduplication or endo-reduplication that they are undergoing. So now this word endo-reduplication should strike to you something which you have studied in genetics. Anyhow, remember that endo-reduplication means that extra round of DNA synthesis which happens. Okay, so these are happening in the specialized cells, or we can say that it is happening in these cells, that this duplication and endo-reduplication, and that is why it is causing them to be specialized. So in today's class, let us look into the in vitro induced somoclonal variation. So the second source of this variation is the in vitro induced variation. So in here, what when we do in vitro induced somoclonal variation, we select a donor plant. Okay, you can see the pictures over here. We select a donor plant and a suitable explant to initiate the cultures. The explant is excised from the parent plants and you incubate it in a suitable nutrient media following all the aseptic conditions. So any genetic variation that are present in this explant, which is a tissue, when we harvest it from the donor plant, right? That is right, no? Because explant are what? I told you it is a part or a piece of a plant. So we are actually harvesting this explant from the donor plants or a mother plant. Maybe this one. Okay, this is a mother plant. From this, I took a part of a leaf. So the explant or tissue, when we harvest it from the donor plants, it is called as pre-existing variability. Many variation that will be caused or introduced during the culture on are called as in vitro induced variation. Till here it was called as pre-existing somoclonal variation. But when I took the explant from this plant and I started doing all my tissue culture procedure, now it is no more pre-existing variation. It is in vitro induced somoclonal variation. Hope now you know the difference between the pre-existing and the in vitro induced. Okay. So as I told that the cultures now are called as in vitro induced variation. So the explant tissue, okay, they undergo a process of various regenerations like dedifferentiation, and to generate other morphogenetic responses or various stages of their cell growth. That is known as your morphogenetic responses. Basically, the differentiated cells in the explants are introduced or induced to differentiate to make callus, which is a mass of undifferentiated tissue. And what does this callus do? It can develop into organ, and that process is known as organogenesis. Then shoot is developed. Okay. So we have the callus. It is ready to undergo organogenesis. We can change the media and we can generate the shoots of suitable size. And then this shoot can be excised and transferred onto a rooting media. After the roots have been developed from these shoots, the plantlets will be ready to transfer to the soil for hardening, or what I mean to tell is to get acclimatized to the new actual environment. And this whole process of in vitro regeneration from your explant, your inoculation, your callus formation, your shoot, your root development into the whole plant, and then coming into the field from your greenhouse. Always these plants were in your laboratory under your control, and suddenly they are facing this outer world, and we are making them, preparing them to face this actual nature, and that is called as hardening, right? But don't you think so they are facing so many stress? Is this was their environment? Is this was their nature? No, it is completely different. They are under your control, right? And so your what is happening? So they have to undergo so many processes to form a whole plant, a single explant, a small piece of plant, part of a plant. So this is an entire stressful or traumatic shock, what I told you, for the living tissue. And it may result in the mutagenic processes, leading to mutations or abnormalities in the in vitro regenerated plants. So this phenomena is known as in vitro induced somoclonal variation. That is, you took the explant and whatever the process you did so, and that resulted in distress to the plant, which ultimately resulted in a mutation, and that mutation led to a somoclonal variation, right? And was a pre-existing plant, a normal plant which was present, and we took an example from that normal plant itself. We took a meristem and a leaf, as I told you earlier, and we saw the difference between who's more specialized. The more they are specialized, the more you undergo duplication, the more you go undergo endo reduplication. This all leads to specialized cells, which are easily prone to undergo somoclonal variation. It may be stress, it can be some chromosomal variation, right? So that is what we'll be looking at in this slide. In vitro induced variations, majority of these can be categorized into the following group. That is the age of the culture, sorry, that is the age of the plant, the culture composition, what you're using, what is the culture media, the growth habit of the tissue, do they have any inherent sensitivity of the donor plant, the plant genotype. All this can lead to an variation. Okay, the age, the culture composition, that media, what you're using, the growth habitat of a plant. Maybe they're growing in desert, maybe they're growing in a tropical country, a temperate country. In what we told in tissue culture, we can provide all artificial conditions to grow them here in the laboratory, but you are providing some sort of stress to them. So the accumulation of variation increases with the increase in the number of multiplication cycle. And sterilization and induction of artificial media process is also stressful for the plant. Before you undertake artificial media development of the explant, they undergo sterilization. Is it not harsh to the plant? Maximum we see that no, it should not be harsh to the plant, otherwise it will be killing our plant. But still, plant hormones or growth regulators are used to different concentration and combination can lead to somoclonal variation. Okay, so you can see that the sterilization process, which is also a stressful for the plant and harsh, and then the induction of the artificial media for the differentiation followed by de-differentiation or excision of the root, and you're transferring it into the rooting media where they are induced for the production of roots now. All this process, all the changes are very stressful for a living tissue. Above all, the growth regulators can have a significant impact on the introduction of somoclonal variation. The potential of growth hormone or your growth regulators may vary among various growth. It can vary among different plant species. So the age, the culture, the media, everything can lead to a source of variation. So the first one, when I told the age of culture in the in vitro culture tissue is continuously induced for multiplication, right? From the young plant, they have to keep on multiplying to develop into a fully grown matured plant. The frequency rate of accumulation of variation increases with the increase in the number of multiplication cycle. So you took a small explant and you are growing into a whole plant because it has a totipotency capacity. But at the same time, it has to undergo so many cycles of this multiplication, the duplication, right? And that can lead to a variation. Further, the time period for which the culture is maintained under the in vitro. What is the time period you're keeping it under in vitro is critical, and longer duration condition of the culture maintenance increases the frequency of somoclonal variation. So what is the time period? What is the duration of that plant you're keeping it under tissue culture? Are you doing properly the subculture? How many times you have to do the subculture? This all factors becomes important because this can lead to an increase in the frequency of somoclonal variation. Then second is we told about the composition of the culture media. Now during the regeneration process, whatever we spoke now, the shoot to root to whole plant formation, from the explant in inoculation or incubation on the culture media to regenerate the plantlets. At every stage of the tissue culture, different plant hormones are used. These may be used in different combination or in different concentration. There are several hormones which are being used, right? We told auxin, cytokinin, gibberellic acid. Did we leave with these three? We spoke more, right? We told about indole acetic acid, indole butyric acid, 2,4-D, kinetin, zeaxanthin, kinetin. So many again in that auxins and cytokinins. We saw again so many types which are naturally produced, which are synthetically produced. Do they cause any variation? Definitely they do cause. Okay. So the genotype and the growth habits can influence the frequency of regeneration of plants, and it is regulated at genetic level. Therefore, the nature of genotype and the growth habits can influence the frequency of regeneration. Genotype means the gene what they are carrying. So that can also lead to your somoclonal variation. So, like when we look into these physiological causes, we told like exposure of the cultured plant to growth regulators. We have this 2,4-D, 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, naphthalene acetic acid, 6-benzyl aminopurine, synthetic phenyl urea derivative frequently considered responsible for genetic variability. All these fellows responsible for causing genetic variability. For example, 2,4-D, higher DNA ploidy levels in callus they can cause. Ploidy, I told you, it can either increase the number of set of chromosomes or can decrease the number of set of chromosomes. Right? And it can induce that in the callus cell, high level of methylation event, that is addition of methyl groups. That can lead to, again, variation. We have our IAA and in inositol, which causes DNA rearrangement and methylation. And there are different growth hormones at different concentration, as it is mentioned here. Kinetin causes excessive DNA hypomethylation. So, what is this methylation? It is the addition of the methyl group to your DNA. Not only the concentration, but also the ratio of different growth regulators affect the occurrence of the variation in vitro. So, we can see various genetic causes. So, it can be a chromosomal number change, gene mutation, DNA amplification, hypermethylation of DNA, transposable elements. These all can lead to somoclonal variation. Okay, so the chromosomal number change. We first will look into this. Okay, so what is happening? So the number of the chromosome, it changes. That is known as the ploidy. Ploidy changes are commonly observed in tissue culture raised plants because we see that most of the growth regulators can bring about the ploidy. That is why there is changes. They may arise from the pre-existing variability or induced in vitro cultures. So the chromosomal changes would have happened in the pre-existing variability, pre-existing plant, or induced plant, or the explant in vitro cultures. So polyploidy is preferred in vitro culture. Sometimes it can have its positive effect. For example, the tetraploid carrot cells are preferred over the diploid cells in a mixed culture. That is, what it means to tell is, see, you're growing tetraploid carrots, okay? And in another row, you just grow the diploid cells. Both will grow, both the carrots will grow. But you mix your tetraploidy and diploid carrots together. You mix them. Finally, you'll see that they have observed that it is a tetraploid carrot that will finally survive, and everything will ultimately get converted into a tetraploid. Okay, so structural changes in the chromosome like deletion or inversion. Deletion means, a segment of the DNA is deleted. Inversion means, it is a segment of the DNA is inverted. Like ABC means it becomes CBA. Okay, it gets inverted. Translocation, that is, from one part of the chromosome will go to the another set of chromosome, right? So we'll not go much detail into this, but do remember that it leads to chromosomal variations, because we have already clearly dealt all this in genetics. So next we have gene mutation and DNA amplification. So chromosomal level change occur at larger scale where large fragments or segments of genome are involved. However, stress in the in vitro culture may result in small specific mutations, and multiple mutation accumulate during the generation of a plant, or accumulation of metabolic product itself in the media may affect and induce the somoclonal variation. So this all what I said is leading to gene mutation and DNA amplification, isn't it? So the plant genome can undergo multiple mutation during the tissue culture. So introduction of somoclonal variation may not be random process, and part of the genome may be more susceptible to stress. One part of your plant or your explant can be more susceptible to stress than the other. So also the recessive mutations may not be expressed in your first progeny when they're generated. And in the second, third generation, they will show that mutation. That is, amplification of specific DNA segment has reported and associated with traits like amplification of glutamine synthase gene for herbicide resistance and alpha alpha. So what it means amplification of specific DNA segments. Amplification is what, just magnifying in a higher magnitude, like, okay. So amplification of specific DNA segments has been reported, and it has been associated with traits like amplification of this enzyme glutamine synthase gene. Now, what the scientist has observed is, whenever there is an amplification of a particular segment, that is this gene, glutamine synthase gene of a plant called as alpha alpha, that plant has showed herbicide resistance. Very good. The variation is beneficial for us. So when I add herbicide, my herbs will die, my unwanted weeds will die, but my plant alpha alpha will be there. It will be alive. Why? Because it has developed resistance against the herbicide, whatever chemicals you're adding. You are adding the chemicals to kill the herbs, the weeds, not the your crop plant. But naturally, what is happening? You have not induced any resistance to this alfalfa. You have not manipulated this plant. In turn, what has happened is by nature itself, the DNA segments have got amplified this glutamine synthase gene and they are showing resistance to the herbicide. So, this is a positive character. Maybe the others what we saw was a negative effect. This is a positive effect. So, I can select this plant for future growth. So hope this slide is you have understood. So chromosome level change occur at larger scale where larger fragment or the segment of the genome are involved. So however, the stress in the in vitro culture may result in small specific mutation and multiple mutation accumulate during the generation of in vitro plant. So this can lead to somoclonal variation in vitro. Though there is only small mutation, that single mutation is also important to bring about a large change. So hence the chances to interfere with the traits are regulated from the susceptible pair of genome would be higher. That is what we told here, right? Some of the explant or some part of your plant are more susceptible to stress. When they're more susceptible to stress, what happens? Variation occurs there. Easily, I can manipulate that part, not me, the somoclonal variation we are speaking about. Okay. Sometimes changes may be recessive. Okay. Dominant, recessive, all those. Okay. We are not going into all those. We'll not touch the genetics part around. So, this recessive, sometimes the changes may be in recessive allele. So, in F1, you may not see the changes. However, in later generation, in F2 or F3 later generation, you can see the changes. And already I have explained this amplification of glutamine synthase gene. It is having beneficial effect. That is, it is resistant to the herbicide what we are adding. Next, we'll come to hypomethylation of DNA. So DNA methylation is a process. See, DNA methylation occurs in humans also, but we are not going to speak about the human thing and all because it leads to cancer. All those things are there. If you're interested, you can study about that also in humans, what it leads to. But let us see what is happening in our somoclonal variation. DNA methylation is a process by which methyl groups are added to your DNA molecule. This can change the activity of the DNA segment, right? Without changing the sequencing. So DNA methylation, your methyl group is added, right? And this can bring over the change in the activity of the DNA, the entire segment, without changing the any sequence of the DNA. So DNA methylation is an epigenetic mechanism to control the gene expression. So what happens is the epigenetic changes are usually reversible, we told. That is, now that there is a DNA methylation occurring, and this has an influence from the epigenetic changes. Epigenetic means the interaction of the environment I told you. And that change is not a permanent change. Epigenetic changes, they are temporary for certain period of time. And I also told you they are reversible. So that is what is DNA methylation. What is this hypomethylation of DNA? Hypomethylation means it is a loss of methyl group in your cytosine or in your guanine. Okay, That is, they are highly repeated DNA sequencing. Because who produces this? It is all produced by growth hormones. For example, this kinetin, here it is, naphthalene acetic acid. All these, no, they causes hypomethylation. So this is known as hypomethylation of the DNA. DNA methylation means addition of methyl groups to DNA. Hypomethylation means loss of the methyl group. Both are inducing some variation. So in vitro culture directly influences the methylation pattern, usually causes hypermethylation. So growth regulators may induce specific type of methylation patterns, like kinetin is associated with hypomethylation. And if there is an interference of the epigenetic changes, these are usually reversible. They can be reverted back. Then we have transposable elements, which we spoke about it. Okay, the in vitro culture stress can be activated by silent transposable elements. They are sitting silently, but because of the stress, that particular DNA segment. Okay, I've already explained it, so you can go back to my slide previous class and see it. So they are sitting silently, and what happens? Your plant is facing so much stress, and the stress, like in humans also, when we go undergo stress, what is happening? Automatically, it is affecting our body. You feel that your body is paining, and all sorts of negative things starts happening. Similarly, when the plant is facing a stress condition, what it goes and activates the transposable elements which were silent. And these fellows, these are called as jumping genes. From where they are sitting, they'll go and jump in and sit in any other part of the gene, the DNA segment. And they can bring about a variation. Next, we shall study about the in vitro and in vivo selection. So, this is very important from the point of examination, because your syllabus also speaks about its homoclonal variation, how it can be useful to produce a disease resistant plant. So the first one we shall see about the in vivo selection for disease resistant plant. So here in vivo selection, yes, selection is done. Selection of your plant, disease resistant plant, is done after in vitro culturing. So now the plantlets will be ready for the transfer to the soil. So here what actually happens is the explants are cultured on a suitable culture media. So this is my plant. I have taken the explant. I've taken the explant, and I have added different concentration of the medium so that let it undergo de-differentiation. So the callus has undergone de-differentiation. Now it is ready to undergo the formation of organs. Then it will undergo redifferentiation. So when it undergoes redifferentiation, what is happening? Shoots are producing. Then you develop the rooting, put it in the rooting media, and you develop the root. Then what will I do? I will multiply this plant so that let them adapt to the environment. And now the plantlets will be ready for the transfer to the soil for hardening. And then what? They are screened. The decided trait, suppose the decided trait is resistance to a particular pathogen. Okay, See here, I have multiplied the plant. All the plants have grown now. That is, they have adapted themselves to the external environment. Now what I'm going to do, I'm screening this plant. Whatever I have multiplied, I'm screening. What I'm screening to see if among the 100 plants, how many plants can withstand a particular pathogen, a disease. Okay. So I am screening to see that is if there is a decided trait. What is my decided trait? My decided trait is to see that is the plant resistant to a particular disease. Okay. So I'm checking for that decided trait here. Suppose the decided trait is resistant to a particular pathogen. So these plants are infected with the pathogen. See here, blue color. Only one plant example I have shown that is resistant to a particular pathogen. So what will I do? I'll identify this, okay? And then I know this plant is resistant to a particular pathogen. And now what you will do, you try to put the pathogen into that plant, okay, and see whether really they are tolerant or resistant to the pathogen. So you're inducing the pathogen to this plant. And if they win, okay, that is, if they are able to overcome that pathogen, they will survive. And this is multiplied. And again, they are tested for more times for the susceptibility and finally selected. And this is a new disease resistant cultivar and it is commercialized. This is one way in which you identify a plant which is resistant to a particular disease. And that is known as the in vivo selection. Okay, just once again I'll explain. In vivo selection, what we have done, we took the plant, its explant, and we developed an undifferentiated mass of tissue callus. We allowed it to undergo de-differentiation so that let it develop into any part of a plant. It undergoes re-differentiation from de-differentiation. We provide shooting nutrient, the hormone and rooting hormone, and we multiply these plants in the greenhouse. That is, they are undergoing hardening. After that, we are screening this entire plant to see that maybe anything, but here we are particularly what we are interested in disease resistant plant. So I'm screening to see that if they are resistant to a particular disease, maybe the disease is Z. So when you screen, what happens when you are inducing that pathogen Z, one of the all the plant will die. Only one plant will survive against the Z organism. So now you'll take this plant. You try to add again that disease to that plant. Nothing will happen. It will survive. So now what you'll do, you'll take this plant, you have screened it, and now what you'll do, your selection of decided somoclonal variation. So here what has happened, your somoclonal variation, whatever the changes you have done, you took the explant, you grew it into a whole plant, and finally you're seeing that your plant is showing some resistance against certain disease. You'll be really happy, right? So I can grow this plant, and some more time you have to test the plant before you bring it to the field for commercialization. That is always should be done, because you should be not 99.9%, 100%. Yes, this plant is disease resistant plant. It should be proved. Only then you can bring it to commercialization. Bring it to the field cultivation. Give it to the farmers. Unless you'll do everything in your plant station. Okay. Now we shall deal with in vitro selection. We'll see what is this in vitro selection is all about. So in vitro, the selection is done in vitro culture stage. That is, you see here also we have taken the egg plant, right? The callus is developed. Here, the callus is, we take the egg plant, the callus is developed, and several small pieces of the culture of this callus is put multiplied. I did not put any shoot development or root development regulators here. I took the explant, I developed it into a callus, which under, because it is an undifferentiated mass of tissue, I put certain media, I mean the nutrients or the phytohormones, which underwent dedifferentiation to produce the callus. So the callus is developed, and several small pieces of this callus culture are separately put into different vessels. Okay, and they are allowed to multiply. So the callus is maintained and it is proliferated. So the enough callus material will be generated. Here you can see they are all multiplied. Okay, so the enough callus material will be generated, and then it can be used for selection. So the callus can be exposed to any type of organisms. If you want this, if you want to see, check whether it is resistant to a particular disease, you can go for it, or you can see whether it has having any inhibitory effect. It is having any inhibition against toxin. Is it showing any inhibition to pathogen, or is it showing inhibition to abiotic stresses such as the temperature and salt? You do all that here itself, the callus itself. Multiply the callus, take the pieces of callus, again you multiply and do all these tests what I told you. You want to see whether they are pathogen resistance, herbicide resistant, they are inhibitory to your toxins, whether they can withstand abiotic stresses. They can, abiotic stresses means your temperature, your salt conditions, cold conditions. So the callus are grown in a selective media. Only those calli or those cells will survive that have accumulated specific variation or mutation that provide protection against the effect of selective agent. Whatever selective agent I have selected, what and all I told, any one you can choose. So you are growing them in a selective media, and you see here application of selective agent and screening of the decided plant. So many I have multiplied, and I'm inducing them all to, for example, I'm putting intentionally, I'm adding a pathogen to them. So all the calluses have died because the pathogens have killed them, inhibited them. But one callus has survived. That is, it is able to withstand that pathogen. Now what you'll do, you take this, let it undergo redifferentiation. That is, let it form the shoot, let it develop the root. And then what you're going to do, you're going to grow it into a whole plant. Not one plant, many plant. So you can take the explant of this and grow clonal propagation you do. You'll get large number of plants. So after few cycles of selection and transferred onto the regeneration media, where they will induce organogenesis responses, they develop shoot, they develop root, and they grow into whole plant, and you put them in the soil for hardening, and again in the field condition. When you're bringing to the field condition, you will do again the same testing to see whether really I have done the right, I've chosen the right plant. Okay, so it can be in vivo selection or it can be in vitro selection. So both you're doing in it in tissue culture. But what is the difference? See here, in vitro, what you're doing, where is that? One second. Okay, first in vivo selection, what did you do? Explant, dedifferentiation, redifferentiation, rooting, develop the entire, multiply your clonal propagation, and then you screen for your plant which is showing the resistant. After that, grow that plant, again see for the screen for the resistant. Look at here what you're doing. Are you taking this callus and developing into shoot and root, multiplying that plant and again testing for the plant whether they're having disease or not? No, you have stopped your process in the callus only. You took the explant and you grew it as a callus by providing the growth regulator cytokinin and auxin in any concentration. That undifferentiated mass of tissue will undergo dedifferentiation. I'll take the callus, make pieces of this callus, develop it again, multiply the callus itself. And to this callus only I'm testing all, whether it is a pathogen resistant or herbicide resistant or salt resistant, whatever you want, what you have decided. And you induce them. Particularly, I'm saying that, okay, Z disease here also. I put a Z pathogen and I'll see whether that plant is growing. No, I killed all the pathogens, but one of the callus survived. So I will take that callus, I'll underdo redifferentiation, rooting, then I'll develop into so many plants. Take this explant of this and develop large number of plants. And again, I'll do a screening test in the field to see that 100% I'm sure that I'm not gone wrong. So when you compare in vivo and in vitro selection, in vitro is more favorable, right? Less effort, less labor, less time consuming, right? So you have to remember these two very important methods, in vivo selection and in vitro selection, from the point of examination also. So what are the factors that is triggering the such type of mutation? If there is a wound, exposure to sterilants, which we spoke, tissue being incomplete, that is, the tissue is not having cell wall, imbalanced media components such as high concentration of plant growth regulators, sugars from the nutrient media has been replaced for photosynthesis in the leaves, lightening condition, that is a physiological condition, I mean the physical conditions, the disturbed relationship between the high humidity and transpiration. These all can lead to mutation. That is, it all can lead to variation. Protoplast culture and also callus culture formation impose stress to your plant. Therefore, the production of plants via axillary branching. Okay, we spoke about this axillary branching in micropropagation, remember. Adventitious bud formation and axillary branching, we spoke in micropropagation. Please go back to the video and look into it for the details. So via axillary branching does not normally result in the production of variants. So if I don't want any variants, let me go for axillary branching, which is less stressful. While the cultures that go through the callus phase are the ones that are theoretically promote higher rate of mutation. Okay, so the callus is the one which is more prone to the mutation. Longer a culture is maintained in vitro, the greater is the somoclonal variation. If you are simply keeping the culture and growing multiple cycle, it will ultimately lead to somoclonal variation. Okay, there is what genomic instability is being caused there. So regeneration via embryogenesis has better chance of obtaining genetically uniform plants than through organogenic differentiation. So embryogenesis is one of the best way to overcome somoclonal variation. So this is so because DNA in the initial stages of development in embryogenesis contains lower levels of methylation than in the later stages. That is why we are going for embryogenesis culture. Because as I told you, I explained you taking the young and mature leaf. You saw that the young leaf was not prone to much of variation. Similarly, somatic embryogenesis also. We'll be studying that also in detail. So these all conditions are leading to somoclonal variation. But at the same time, you saw that they can also be beneficial. We saw these two important experiments wherein we were able to develop a very good plant which can withstand certain unfavorable conditions. Now, friends, let us go and look into the advantages of your somoclonal variation. What are the advantages of it? So, it helps in crop improvement, as we have seen in the example. So, somoclonal variation is a tool to create new variants, noble traits, or innovative traits. Variation can be introduced both in the nuclear and the cytoplasmic genomes. So, creation of additional genetic variation. How this additional genetic variation means by using the cytoplasmic genomes or and the plasmids which are present in the plants, you can bring about various changes, beneficial changes you can bring about. Increased and improved production of secondary metabolites. So already I told you secondary metabolites are very important, economically important. Medicinal plants, okay, turmeric, garlic, they are all medicinal, commonly which you use at home. They have so many health important properties. Okay, so these can be developed through tissue culture. So selection of plant resistant to various toxin, herbicide, high salt concentration and mineral toxicity, suitable for breeding of tree species, and it is a very good tool to create varieties, new cultivars. When I showed you the first slides, such beautiful flowers, some beautiful leaves, the different colors of leaf, the different shapes of the leaves. Isn't it attractive? Can keep it as an ornamental plant, right? Variation can occur both in the nuclear and cytoplasmic traits, as I said earlier, and sophisticated technologies are not required. Only what we use in the simple tissue culture lab, that is what is required. Nothing new. We are not introduced anything new. We are growing the plant and it is bringing about certain variation. Variation may be novel and may not be achieved through the conventional breeding program. So, whatever the variation, if it is beneficial, if it is novel, if it is innovative, if it is noble, why not accept it? You are getting something in a plant tissue culture which is very unique, having unique trait, which is not possible for you to get it from the conventional breeding or your traditional breeding. Large populations of cells can be used for in vitro selection. That is one of the main important points of our tissue culture. Instead of growing one, two, three, four plants, which is countable, grow many plants. We showed you. I showed you a slide wherein a tissue culture lab, just in bottles, tissue culture bottles, you develop so many plants. In vitro selection can shorten the time to isolate somoclones with desired trait. We saw those two things, right? So I am growing the plant in the lab, it is in my hand. I can do the manipulations and I'm growing it into a whole plant. The trees which takes years to fruit, that one I'm doing it in 1 year. Is it not all this beneficial of tissue culture? Definitely. Particularly growing tree plants is very difficult, but that is being done in tissue culture. So look at these, where lot of advantages has been seen in the banana plant, which has by somoclonal variation. Okay, different varieties of banana which has been plant which has been provided by the somoclonal variation. And you can see that this downy mildew, which you have studied in your microbiology, which causes the disease in grape plant and all, you can see they have developed a plant which is resistant to downy mildew, which is resistant to other species. Tomato, which is resistant to disease now, it has been produced. Maize plant, which is resistant to fusarium. Potato also. Blackberries, thornless blackberries are produced now. So these are the advantages, beneficials what we are talking of, the tissue culture plants, okay, which have undergone the somoclonal variation. So as usual, if there is advantages, we also have to speak about the disadvantages. So not good for micropropagation. This one I told you in the starting of the class itself when we dealt with somoclonal variation. If you want to propagate a plant, okay, for example, I'll write it and show you. If I want to propagate a A plant, which I know it is having all the unique trait, and I want the same trait, okay, so my X, Y, Z plant, which got it from this A. These are all the explant. I grew this plant and I want to micro propagate it. Micro means what? Explant, because it is small, right? It is a part of the piece of your plant. You're not taking the entire plant, bringing to the plant tissue culture room and growing. No, you're taking only the explant and you are propagating, multiplying, making it more in number. And at the end of the growing the plant, you find that what phenomena you wanted from A is not present in X, Y, and Z. Is it useful? No. So when you want to micro propagate, I don't want somoclonal propagation. I want to micro propagate only my A plant. And what the decided character is in this A, I want it in X, Y, Z, or your C, D, E, F, whatever it is. You don't come and interfere, but it sometimes interferes. Variation introduced are random, hence large number of progenies need to be screened. So you see that the variation what we are inducing are random. It is not in sequency. We are not doing one, two, three, no, like randomly we are doing that. Hence large number of progenies needed to be screened. Most of the somoclonal variations may not be useful because it can lead to lot of undesirable effects. If it is useful effects like we saw in the previous, like your blackberries, your potato, your maize and all, it's good. But look at this, if it is not useful. Optimization regeneration protocols are required to create somoclonals for any plant species. There are n number of species, plant species, which we don't know also. And for every plant, it is very difficult to do optimization. So if you need to propagate a plant, you have to go for optimization, standardization. So optimized regeneration protocols are required to create somoclones for plant species. Variation are unpredictable and uncontrollable. If the variations, you are doing something properly, following everything, and it has resulted in variation, is it under your control, or did you ever predict it will happen like this? No, it happened by chance. And by chance, if it is beneficial, it is okay. If it is not beneficial, everything is waste. It may not be useful for complex agronomic trait, may result in negative variation along with decided trait. So decided trait is also there. Some negative variation is also there. Now what you do with such type of plant? It's quite difficult. So coming to the application part, it can be used to generate new traits in the existing cultivar. Okay, biotechnology has revolutionized plant tissue, the crop improvement by plant tissue culture methods and other genetic engineering methods. Wherein I had required acres of land to do my experiments of breedings, today I can do it in the laboratory, just taking a piece of plant. And I can see in the laboratory how that piece of plant is going, developing each and every day into a whole plant. It is such an happy moment when we speak only, we are feeling so happy to see one leaf or one flower piece, putting it into a media, and finally you get the whole plant. It's really a moment of joy. Okay, cultivars exhibiting disease resistance. These are all applications like mildew resistance in barley, resistance of fusarium in banana and tomato, tolerance to abiotic stresses like salt, drought, cold, salt, heat, tolerance in flax plant, tolerance to herbicide and resistant to insect damage, other agronomically traits like improving the quality, better yield, fruit quality, male sterility, etc., variation in the leaf and flower morphology, and color variance. So these are the some of the application. So the main important today what we saw was that we mostly dealt with the in vivo and in vitro disease resistance, how we can develop it. We saw the application now. We saw what are the advantages, and then we saw the disadvantages also, and we saw what are the different types of chromosomal changes which is occurring. Here you see, here chromosomal number changes, gene mutation can occur, DNA amplification, hypermethylation, transposable elements. All these are genetic causes which are related directly to your gene. If, but if it is not beneficial, then that is the biggest question mark. Okay, so we saw the various advantages also. See, like in India, this is very particularly we have seen a very big what to say advantage in banana plant growth in tissue culture in India, especially. Okay, like uh, we have got many positive results using this banana plants, and now we can see the downy mildew or the tomato which can withstand your salt tolerance, what your blackberry, okay, which is an exotic fruit not much found in India. We can produce thornless blackberry now using somoclonal variation. Potato, which is our disease resistant or tolerant to certain salinity. All this. So disadvantages and application. With this, we come to the end of somoclonal variation. And thank you for kindly listening to me.